computer. Everyone loves that metaphor, right? All right, so I'm gonna walk you through how I think about the brain computer. So actually I just got that computer back there, and I updated the LED lights on it. I had to take it apart, but now I have full control of my LED lights. I can do all kinds of cool patterns and stuff. Let's put it back to all blue. Let's do that. Yeah, so brain equals computer. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go through the different parts of the brain, like 4 or 5 parts, not hundreds, but and then I'm gonna, because I've been working on my device, and you know these. So my EEG device, which reads neural metrics, and I've been trying to think of sort of interpretable, understandable things for this. Anyway, so if you're familiar with a computer, you're familiar as a motherboard, a CPU, a GPU, some RAM, and hard drives, right? I don't know how familiar you guys are with computers, whether or not you've built them before, or you've just vaguely aware enough of them, or you've had to fix them or whatever. So there is some metaphorical translation to our brains. So in a lot of ways, let me go ahead and start using colors here. The back of the brain is kind of like the GPU, because what it does is it processes vision. So it's processing all these 2D images coming from your brain, and I've drawn this before, but let's go ahead and draw like 2 big old eyeballs, big old vision cameras, and then you got big old fiber optic HDMI cables going to the back of your brain, right? So that part, so the visual cortex, like if you've taken neuroscience classes, you know, they love talking about V4 or V5 because we've really characterized those. But all the V, you know, the layers, they just have numbers to them up to V6, and then they go to different areas. So it's kind of like a big GPU, right? And then you have the front of the brain, which is sort of where your executive control is. They like to say in cognitive neuroscientists. Wow, I really don't like that line. Where's my drawing pencil? There we go. So this is, you know, prefrontal control, which is like if you focus on something or pay attention to something a lot, you can pick up a lot of activity there. This is, you know, something that they study a lot with people with attention disorders. The prefrontal cortex is kind of where you set your goals moment to moment, and it kind of directs the rest of your brain. So in a lot of ways, it's like your CPU, because it directs everything else, and it tends to be like serially bottlenecked, like you can only process one thing at a time. And then in your temporal centers, which you have these temporal lobes, they're called, which is what this over here is. You have your hippocampi, and you know, you can break down the hippocampi a bunch of different ways, but basically if you lose your hippocampi, you can't form new memories. So it's kind of like your distributed hardware system. So for memory access and memory writing and coding, that's kind of like your hard drives. So you got your CPU, you got your hard drives, you got your GPU, and then if you want to get a little fancier, these layers like in the parietal areas that follow the occipital areas are kind of like they're kind of like neural network software. They're like object recognition software. So, you know, just because you have a computer with GPUs and everything, like the thing that allows you to hook up a camera to it and recognize, I don't know, people walking. I don't know if you've ever seen these things. They have, people are using like visual recognition neural networks and things like that to hook it up to security cameras so you can automatically detect, people versus cars versus other objects. So that kind of software that runs on top of all this hardware, it's kind of like your parietal stuff. That's where you have more complex object recognition. So there's some signals that you can get off that too. So that's it. That's where the metaphor kind of ends. These things are more distributed in the brain. They're not as concentrated in as they are in a computer. But it's kind of interesting because like what I'm working with. Let me use a different color. I'm just going to wrap this up by telling you why any of this is relevant. You can get signals off of all these things kind of in this order that I'm drawing, so that when you see something new, let me pick a different color. Seeing something new over here. Yeah, like that. The event happens here. Oops. I need a bigger space. Let me see if I can make this bigger. This is kind of ridiculous. I always have this problem. All right. All right, so yeah, the event happens here, which is this event up here. And then following that in time, you start getting signals. About 100 milliseconds, it hits the back of your brain and you're getting early processing of it, depending on how much attention is being deployed by this, but doesn't matter. This kind of controls everything. So anyway, but whether or not this is basically online or really active, you see signals here, and then about 200 milliseconds you start seeing signals here. About 300 milliseconds you start seeing signals here, which is whether or not you're going to have an actual response to it. So if you have a task where you actually have to push a button or something like that, or pay attention to certain things and ignore other things, you might see that recognition of, say, a goal-oriented stimuli about 300 milliseconds. And then way later at like 500-600 milliseconds, you might see memory access, memory encoding. So this all happens at about, oh, it's off the screen. This all happens at about 600 milliseconds. And you can detect that with electrical sensors. So that's it. I just thought it'd be our little knowledge warhead lecture today. It's just something I've been thinking about because I've been trying to. I've been trying to increase the signal processing on my device, but then I've also been trying to think really hard about, like what do I personally want to see for this thing to be like fun and useful and sort of meaningful. So you kind of have to think hard about what these signals are and what they mean. So I don't know, the metaphor, as silly as it is, and I don't know, more relatable metaphors I think can be very good sometimes, but a lot of times in like science land, or people trying to like out serious each other, they they tend to be kind of negative about those kind of easy to digest metaphors. But I think it works pretty well. Especially there's a lot of people who are familiar with computers in this day and age, or have built them or whatever. So I haven't